Hello everyone. This is actually my first time using a GoPro to record a video, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, I was praying evening prayer today, and right when I got to the basilica hymn for the Chaldean evening prayer, I started reading it, and I was very speechless when I stopped reading it, and that's because for the fifth Sunday of Lent, our Chaldean church fathers saw fitting to put this specific basilica hymn into the evening prayer. And I thought it would be nice to share it with you guys and sort of break it down sentence by sentence, because you would be shocked of how much truth there is behind this basilica hymn and how much fruit we could gain, theologically, spiritually, and just being able to apply it in a practical way in our lives. So I'll read the whole thing first and we'll break it down sentence by sentence. So it says this: "The whole span of my life disperses and vanishes vainly in the confusion of the vanities of this world. And because I have not even desired for a single hour to prepare myself for tackling work in the spiritual vineyard, I do not expect to receive the wage prepared for the just. But for the hidden wounds of my sins, I ask forgiveness from you, unworthy though I am. And because of this, before I stand before your frightful judgment seat and am found guilty of my crimes by your just judgment, say the word, and I will be healed by your mercies. O lover of mankind, glory to you." Okay, first line. "The whole span of my life disperses and vanishes vainly in the confusion of the vanities of this world." Okay, someone can say in a cliche way that superficial things are bad, being vain is bad. That's all true. Okay, that's all true stuff. But what the author of this hymn is saying is not only are these things bad, these superficial things, being consumed in them bad and being vain bad, but this is what it causes. He sort of gives the cause of it first. He says, the confusion of the vanities of this world. And this isn't a sentence that someone should just brush off, because he's right about how confusing vanity could be. Because what happens when someone is so consumed with all of this vanity, with all this, the superficial lifestyle? It does become very confusing for a person, because we are human beings that are not built to sort of rely on vain things of this world, to rely on superficial things of this world. And because we're not built for that, when we do end up living that type of life, it becomes confusing. Because, we see this, I'm sure we see this every day on social media, right? So one celebrity will come out, post a picture on their social media of these shoes, okay? And then all of a sudden, you see it catch like wildfire throughout the world, and everyone starts buying these specific shoes. Or another celebrity, starts, dressing a certain way. You see it also catch like wildfire. And that could be very confusing to a person, because when we start living that type of life, you no longer know who you are anymore. You sort of lose touch of the purpose of your life. You lose touch of how human beings aren't meant to rely on these vain things. And this confusion only gets worse and worse, especially someone that is so caught up in this vain lifestyle. And when we're confused, that causes us to not make the decisions that we would like to make. It would cause us to make these poor decisions that we would have never made if we weren't so caught up and confused from the vanity, okay? And then the next line says, "And because I have not even desired for a single hour to prepare myself for tackling work in the spiritual vineyard, I do not expect to receive the wage prepared for the just." Right after he mentions how vanity causes this confusion in a person, he follows that up by admitting that he has not prepared himself for working in the spiritual vineyard. He has not given the effort spiritually to glorify God in his words. So now you see the effect So you see this cause and effect. You see how because of this confusion of vanity, because of all of this confusion that we inflicted on ourselves, now the result is we're not prepared spiritually. We have been distracted by so much vanity that, and he's sort of writing this in the sense that it's the end of his life, but the cause of this vanity is something that is really detrimental to a person, because the thing he's doing here is he's not only mentioning how he's no longer prepared in the spiritual vineyard of the Lord, but he's being truthful to himself. He knows what he did wrong. And being truthful to ourselves obviously plays a big role, because if one person is in so much denial of having this confusion because of vanity, and if you're not truthful to yourself, you'll never notice that you have gone through years of your life, maybe many years of your life, not preparing yourself spiritually to work in the vineyard of God. And he follows that up by saying, "But for the hidden wounds of my sins, I ask forgiveness from you, unworthy though I am." So we need to realize our faults. Once we realize our faults and turn away from them, sure, we then realize how much of our life was spent not doing the good thing, how much of our life was spent not fulfilling our duty to glorify God in a spiritual vineyard. Sure, we might, see our lives and sort of have this regret that we spent so much of it in this, very empty way. But now he's admitting that he has these hidden wounds, these sins, and he's seeing himself as unworthy before God. He's knowing his place before God and seeing himself as unworthy. Then he says, "And because of this, before I stand before your frightful judgment seat, and am found guilty of my crimes by your just judgment, say the word, and I will be healed by your mercies." He knows, this author knows, that he is not his own savior. He is in need of something greater than himself. And we know that because he says how guilty he would be in front of the judgment seat of God. And he's asking for God's infinite mercy to be poured upon him as we see this, turning away from sin and repenting. And then he ends his basilica hymn by saying, "O lover of mankind, glory to you." So this should be a big warning for all of us of not only how much confusion vanity causes, but I think we could look at it as a whole with sin. Sin causes a lot of confusion. St. Thomas Aquinas says that sin darkens the intellect, and indeed, that's very true. But we should be now called to examine ourselves and see what is causing this confusion. And remember, we have to be truthful with ourselves when we're examining ourselves, because if we're doing it in this sort of mediocre and shallow way, it's defeating the purpose. To examine oneself requires truth and truth of self. And the only way to have that truth revealed to you is through Christ, because Christ is the truth. And we will be able to know the truth about ourselves. And then we're able to walk as, we did in this basilica, to know that vanity causes confusion, sin causes confusion. And because of this confusion, because of living this life of sin, we have wasted a lot of time we could have spent in that spiritual vineyard that the author is talking about. But even though that's the case, it's not the end of the world. Because then we realize how unworthy we are. And then we realize how God's mercy is infinite. And we realize how much more important it is to turn away and not sort of just drown in history and drown in this negative lifestyle that we're living. But look at the hope in Christ and look how his mercy is able to transform us, just as we see the transformation of this person in this basilica hymn. So that's pretty much it for this video. I really wonder how this video went on the GoPro. I really hope it went well, because I do not feel like doing this again. So thank you guys. I guess I'm supposed to say like, subscribe, and put a comment down below. Yalla bye.